start something on time in Delhi, especially with the two jams that are eating up Delhi and helping raise the inflation of the country as well with the more consumption of oil, I guess. But yes, it's always great to have you all. We'll start the evening, and considering this is a Friday evening, Fridays you may associate it with the blockbusters, which you might go to some PVRs. But today we thought if this evening has to be a blockbuster, music to banta hai. Karan, ho ja shuru. Of this song in a while, but the story of Karan is very important here because he's one person who will never say this title of the book for which we are here to do the discussion, which is what the heck do I do in my life. He just passed out his engineering almost a year ago, Delhi Technical University, electronics I guess, and he could be with Synopsys, saw some of the large chip makers in the world, but he chose to pick up music. And he's a lyricist, he's a composer, and he sings only when someone like me pushes him to do that. So big round of applause to Karan. Having these lovely lines to start this discussion today and making this evening a blockbuster for all of you. But this song that he just recited has something very interesting to do with the two Jay and Virus who are here with us. And why? Because Jay and Viru, because they both are very good friends. Shiv only agreed when Ravi called him up and said, okay, you have to do this session. And the very second thing he did was, he texted me, okay, I will. Because I requested him earlier, so would you be able to do that? He said, okay, I'll see. But he never listened to me. But yes, that's what the friendship is all about. And why Jay and Viru? Because they both hail from Bangalore. Sholay has a very interesting connect to Bangalore. Sholay altogether is that art of management, is that movie that taught us the art of management, where a 29-year-old Ramesh Sippy, with his friendship with Divecha, the 53-year-old cinematographer, created the most legendary movies of the times. And it's still, even after 50 years, that movie still holds true to everyone's heart. Talking about Sholay, it was all about adaptability, it was all about friendship, it was all about relationships, and also about the great things that you can do with the limited period you are here on this earth. So on that note, we start our segment 1, for which I request Shiv to take this further with Ravi, which is about the flourishing and adapting, because that's what movie Sholay taught us. With a budget of 1 crore, which extended to almost 5 times, how does somebody flourish and adapt to make a blockbuster in their lives? Shiv, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mohit, and thank you all of you wonderful ladies and gentlemen for being here this evening. As he said, Friday nights are, I'm sure there are many other liquid pursuits which you could have gone after, but you're here for an intellectual pursuit, and we'll ensure that we actually have a wonderful thing. So Ravi, I was just thinking about it. It was 10 years ago, June 2013, when I came and did exactly the same thing in Western Hotel, Bangalore, when we launched your book.
It's good luck.
Yeah, fantastic. That was a fantastic thing. So your first book was about conquering India and conquering the world. And your surmise was, if you did well in India, which was a chaotic country, still is, it still is, I agree with you. If you conquer India for all its chaos, you can do well anywhere. Okay, so that was your first one. The second one is, what the heck do I do with my life? And so just tell us, how did this journey happen from conquering chaos to what the heck do I do with my life?
Good. So again, as Shiv said, he was a big part of launching my first book 10 years ago. And that book did really well, so I'm hopeful that this will also do very well. Thank you. So to answer your question, the first book got me into the writing habit. No, I wasn't, the only writing I did before that was email. So it got me into the writing habit, and so even after the book came out, I continued writing this, and it became shorter form. So little op-eds in Times of India or places like that. And then that was the time when LinkedIn was becoming quite popular. So I started writing more often on LinkedIn, as you do. And I found over the years, by 2015-16, some of my columns were completely ignored, okay, on things
true.
that I considered important. And then anything to do with career, self-help, success,
True.
huge uptake, okay? So it was quite confounding. And in particular, there was a piece I wrote in 2015, which is still going strong at 3 million views. Something called India's IT party is over or whatever. So anything to do with IT party, of course, is a bestseller. So I began thinking that, look, it's very clear that there are a lot of people today who are confused, they're anxious, they're trying to figure out things. And so this is a big thematic area. And so I began sort of writing more and more in that direction. And I got lots of positive feedback. And then that's when I decided there's probably a book here. And that was 2016 or 17. And my publisher is at the back, and my long-suffering editor is at the back, Yamini out there in the corner. And my long-suffering wife is also at the back, Sonali out here. So they know how long this book took. So I knew there was something important to be said. But the challenge was, how do you say these things in a way that's not preachy? Okay, nobody wants gyan. Even though they do want it, they don't want it in that fashion. So how do you make it not preachy? How do you make it interesting? Okay, the other thing is I'm saying, what I have an answer or hypothesis on what you should do with your life, but each person's life is unique.
True.
Okay, so what are you going to say that is generically true? So I had so many bouts of lack of confidence that it took about 6 years to finally come out. But yeah, that's the story of how this book came to be.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a logical follow through from the first.
Absolutely. They're two very different books, and I'm sure that even this book will do well. In this book, you talk about managing turbulence. And all of us who are associated with companies, we clearly know what the signs of turbulence are. Okay, so sales are down, profits down, ecosystems not supporting you. Okay, market share is down. The symbols are very, very clear. 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 quarters, and you know that turbulence hit you. But here you make an interesting point about individual turbulence. So what I want you to tell the audience, with the benefit of all the work you've done for your book, is what are the triggers of turbulence for individuals in their careers or in their lives, not just careers, in their lives. Maybe that would be helpful for all of them to do a quick mental checklist.
Yeah, so I think turbulence is a good word for the times we live in. If you think about just the last 3 or 4 years, right? 3 years. Look at all that's happened. Right? There's COVID, then there's this unimaginable war in Ukraine, there's economic recession in many parts of the world, those supply chains have still not come back. Meanwhile, there's this great growing apart between the US and China
over Taiwan,
and the great split, etc., etc. We've seen nothing yet. It's still playing out. Now you're seeing all these layoffs in tech startups, big companies, big tech companies, etc. So the thing to realize is that we're in a very, very different and strange period. And in chapter 1 of my book, Shiv, I talk about the fact that this is not something where that's an aberration and we'll go back to good old times, etc. This is the new normal, and in fact it's going to get worse. So I make a statement that the world will change more in this 100 years, the 21st century, than in all 50,000 years of human history. And why is that? Because, as you said, it's that we're at the convergence of many storms. So there's this term called the perfect storm. Perfect storm happens when 3 or 4 different storms collide and they feed off each other and it becomes explosive. That's what's going on right now. And it affects everything. It affects businesses, companies, countries, individuals. We're all in the same storm. What are some of these causal factors? Well, one of them is technology. If you just think about the last 3 months, we're completely captivated by what's going on in AI with ChatGPT. How many of you use ChatGPT and played with it a bit? More than half. Yeah, and the rest will soon. And I was talking to some people outside. Since ChatGPT 3 was released in December, and you see the new release this week, 4, it's profoundly improved. It is unimaginably better. Okay, it scored 10% on the bar exam, now it's scoring 90%. Okay, so technologies like this are changing everybody's life. Okay, you can imagine what this does to jobs and so forth. The second thing is what I call the revenge of the planet. We have ill-treated the planet for 300 years, and now she's having her revenge. We've seen nothing yet in terms of the impact of climate, okay, and so on. The third big factor is polarization. So you look at the whole world, it's tearing itself apart. So you have the US and its allies, China and its allies, and then countries like India trying to walk carefully in between, etc. You look at every country, we are polarized. You look in the US, it is a clear divide and the two sides can't stand each other. You look at our own country, polarized on every issue. Why this matters so much is, if you're so polarized and you don't like each other, you don't trust each other, you can't solve problems. Okay? So these problems are going to get worse, not better. And then you look at how the nature of work is changing, etc. So the same storm system is affecting companies, which is why they're going through convulsions, layoffs, restructurings, and so on and so forth. And all our lives are also going through big upheavals. So if you think this pandemic, yeah, it happened, it's almost gone. Well, yesterday I was reading about the next pandemic, and that's about antibiotic resistance. Okay, so the new microbes are completely antibiotic resistant. And meanwhile, since in the last 20 years, the R&D investments in antibiotics has collapsed. Okay, because it's not something that rich people care about. And where there were more than 25 companies making antibiotics, in the year 2000, now it's 4. So the next big pandemic is just around the corner. So all I'm saying is, this is the most incredible time to be alive. And so much turbulence, though, is both good news and bad news. If you know what to do with it, if you know, for instance, how to make ChatGPT your friend and build a business around it, life's great. If you don't, life is toast. So the outcomes are a bit binary.
Okay, thank you for that, Ravi. Now I go back in this last question of Adapt and Flourish to, around 2000, if I wanted to speak to Mohit, who was in the India Habitat Center, I would have to call the India Habitat Center, the building. I called a building to talk to a person. Now I talk to him directly thanks to mobile phones. Thanks to mobile phones, we killed Yellow Pages and we bought the directory directly onto our phones. Now if you look at work, okay, which is the part of Flourish. Work in companies has been outsourced, has been insourced, outshored, insured, etc. Today we have work from home. Some people stretch it in many organizations. Work from home has become work from hometown and they haven't come back from hometowns. Okay, work from home, work from hometown, work from anywhere. Okay, and that is creating some degree of stress in every organization, in every team. Some people on board working, some people not, etc. How do you see the future of work as you see it, and what advice would you have to give senior managers as well as employees in terms of how they should think about work?
Yeah. How much time do we have?
We have 9 questions for the whole session.
No, the future of work is a topic that can go on and on for days in itself. And I'm not an authority on it, but maybe Shiv will pick out just 2 aspects of how work is changing. The first is the idea of a stable job leading to a stable career is dead. Okay, it's completely obsolete. It's a 20th century idea. And the reason is very simple. First of all, because of all this turbulence, companies are going through a lot of churn. And so they want to be as flexible as possible, which is what you've done so well in all your companies. Have a small stable core, and then you use flexible contracts like subcontractors, our vendors, gig workers, freelancers, consultants to do all the other work. And the percentage of permanent employees is shrinking. And even those permanent ones are going through performance appraisals, layoffs, etc. So I say this is like a game of musical chairs, which is getting faster and faster, and there are fewer and fewer chairs. So suddenly the music stops, and you could have been a good performer in Microsoft, and there's no chair. Okay? And that's what's happening right now. And it'll happen to more and more of us. The second thing that's happening at the same time is we are living longer. So there's this book called The 100-Year Life. It's fantastic. It's by a lady called Linda Grattan. You should read it if you are a reader. HBS. And she points out some of the consequences of us living to be in our 90s. And part of the consequences, we want to be productive, working, engaged, busy till you're 75 or 80. Okay? And nobody wants to hire anybody who's over 45. So what are you supposed to do? The result of these two things coming together is every one of us has to stop thinking in terms of job, employment, etc., and say, how quickly can I learn to become independent? How quickly can I become a freelancer, self-employed, or better yet, start a small business and create a few jobs? So this is one huge trend that is out there. Learn to become independent. And the best day to start is today. The second big thing is AI. And as they say, AI will destroy many jobs, it'll create new ones, but it'll change everyone. And I'm just astonished personally at the speed at which just ChatGPT is improving in a short period of time. And what this means is there is no room for anybody who is mediocre. If you're a lawyer who's mediocre, if you're a writer or a journalist who's average, your job's not going to be around. If you're a programmer, okay, your job is finished. Okay, it's just now a matter of time before your organization wakes up to it. So you have to be excellent, or else it's bad. And so you therefore have to start figuring out, what am I good at? What do I love doing? How can I be excellent at it? And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be cooking. It's fine. But as long as you're excellent, you're okay. The second thing it says is, what matters today more and more are not technical skills and hard skills. It's your soft skills, your people skills. So in the book, I write about this project in Google, where they look at who's the most successful people in Google. And it turns out not to be the coders and architects. It turns out to be people who are good with people. People who know how to communicate, work in teams, lead teams, solve problems creatively, etc., etc. So the more human we become, the more likely we are to survive and flourish in the age of AI. So I just picked up two strands, but it's a world that is unimaginably different.
Any guesses what movie was this? Some of the timers in terms of who loves that nostalgia would not suffer. But this movie had something very interesting, and exactly what Shiv and Ravi were discussing. It changed the paradigm of Rajesh Khanna's startup. This was the movie that made Rajesh Khanna. And something very interesting also, to serendipity, Indivar, he was the lyricist for this song. But interestingly, very interesting thing happened. It was quoted that if he is not going to write the song in an hour, the song will go to Anand Bakshi. And he wrote the song in an hour. And that's how, this is what happens when you're under pressure. The best of the best creativity comes out. So don't worry, even if the chat GPT or the co-pilots come your way, you may still be under pressure, but you can perform very well. And that's exactly what the point and the second section is all about. It's about finding your own GPS. How do you navigate your life, even if the world is chaotic, even if there are challenges, and even if my friends who are coming from Gurgaon, they are absolutely sweating because they had met a 2-hour jam, and that's what the messages I've been getting. So what? In the end, you may still find your right GPS, which will take you to the right place. With that, Shiv, I will hand it over to you.
Hey, so this suffer and journey. You know, one of the things about corporate jobs, I'm not so much of an expert in government jobs or maybe some bit of NGO. In every role, in every company, we have, when we judge capability and competence, we always put clarity number one. Does he or she have clarity? Clarity of thought, clarity of whatever. Okay. My question to you, Ravi, is the opposite. Is today, as you rightly said, in turbulent times, what the heck do I do with my life? Obviously, there's a lot of confusion. Okay, in everybody's minds, there's lots of confusion. The mind's the devil's workshop right now. So my question to you is, through all the work, when is confusion good? When is confusion bad? Is there a thing called good confusion, like good cholesterol and bad cholesterol? Is confusion good at all? Because you're living in turbulent times. So what's the role of confusion in individuals' lives now?
Wow, that's a googly. I don't know. I actually think of clarity not as a state, but as a progressive journey. It's like a blurred picture which gradually comes into focus as we grow older and a little bit wiser. At least that's the way it feels to me. Things were more confusing and more sort of blurred 10 years ago. And then through experience and reflecting on that, you become a little bit more aware, and with that the picture becomes a little bit clearer. So I don't necessarily see it as good or bad. I just think of it as is, and some of us are more confused or some of us are less confused at a point in time, but you keep going. And but the trick is to be able to learn from your experiences so that things become a little bit more sharply focused. I'm reminded of a passage from the Bible where, in fact, it actually says this. It says, now, I see through a looking glass darkly, then I see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know in full. Okay? So they're talking about this in the spiritual sense, that when you're finally with the Lord, things will become clearer and clearer. So I don't know. I don't think I have a good answer to your question. What do you think?
No, I think when you have good choices, confusion is good. So suppose
you're spoiled for choice.
Absolutely, you're spoiled for choice. So tomorrow Rohit is told, somebody who worked with me, Nokia, you have a general sales manager job, sales director in India, you have a sales director in Australia, you have a sales director in Europe. That's not confusion, that's bloody good. So that's a good choice to make out of good confusion. Okay, so that's good. The biggest confusion actually I find at work is at senior level, whom do you trust?
Yeah.
It's a serious question which I've debated right through my career, and there's no easy answer, because this thing of whom do you trust is a trial and error exercise till they fail you. The day they fail you, they're off. So it's thing, every day they need to keep score, you need to keep score. Okay, so those are two examples I give you. But moving on, Ravi, you talked of anxieties in people's lives, etc. You've been a CEO yourself, and you've seen lots of people, you're mentor to lots of people, you're mentor to lots of startups, etc. What are typical anxieties people have in their lives and careers?
Well, again, everybody is unique, so we have our unique anxieties, and some of us are more anxious than others. But I do think that there is certain anxieties which are correlated with career and life stages. Right? So when you're young, and you're just starting out, one of the big anxieties is, what should I do? Right? What should I study? Should I study science and engineering, or should I study liberal arts? Should I do higher studies or stop and go get a job? Should I go abroad? Should I stay here? Should I, whatever, do my own startup or get some experience first? So you're confronted with so many choices, which, and you get all kinds of conflicting answers as you speak to parents and friends and whatnot. So I think this is a source of anxiety, at least for some of us. Another anxiety is, you want to progress fast, you want to earn more money, you want to buy a flashier car, and so are you moving fast enough is one. By the time you turn 40, reality hits you. And so one source of anxiety is stability, like today, job security. You really want some stability, because now you have family obligations and all that. Another one is turning 40 often is a wake-up call for people. At least it was for me and a lot of my friends, because you suddenly wake up and you realize, I'm not going to be young forever. And you see, is this how I expected my life to be? Probably not. I expected something different. And by the way, my friends are zooming ahead, so this FOMO, fear of missing out, starts creeping in. Then it doesn't end here. You get older, and you get to be my age, or Shiv's age, I don't know how old you are, but about
similar,
the same.
yeah.
So then you say, shucks, I don't feel like I'm 60, I still feel like I was 40, but the world looks at me differently. So nobody's willing to give me a job anymore. So that's the source of anxiety. What do I do with my life, etc. But the common thing here, if you see the drift, is what do I do with my life? The question is the same, even though your context is changing over the years. So that's why I wrote the book.
Fantastic. So in the book you actually talk of micro experiments, saying, look, try little things. You never know whether they'll become big. Okay, it could lead you onto a new path. You could do something with that little experiment, or if it doesn't work out, shelve it. And you also quote Gandhi in this whole concept of micro experiments. Would you like to tell people about this hypothesis?
It's a very practical thing, Shiv. I'm glad you asked this question about it. Look, we're all going to go through life, and one day you'll reach a point, almost inevitably, where you know what you don't want to do, but you don't know what you do want to do. Okay? So you'll hate your job and your manager, but you just don't know what else to do, so you grimly stick it out because there's some safety, you need the money, whatever. Okay? Or you lose your job and you're saying, what do? I don't know what to do. Okay? Because the conventional opportunities are not there. Or let's talk of good news. You built a company, you sold it, you had a great exit.
What do you do?
Now, what do I do now? And my experience is you can't answer that question by sitting on a beach or in your house and thinking about what should I do. The only reliable way I've found is for you to try many things and see what works. So for instance, when I left Microsoft in 2011 and we were there together, I was only certain of one thing. I'm not going to be an employee again. Okay, the idea of reporting to someone, doing midnight calls is all over. Okay, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I said, maybe I can teach. And then I started teaching a little bit at IIM Bangalore, and I realized I enjoy it, but this can't be the main thing. I enjoy it as a hobby. Or let's do social service, join an NGO, build an NGO, whatever. So I did that too. And I realized I like that, I find meaning, but not full time. Okay? Then I tried other experiments. I like business, so let me bring a global company to India, but this time not as an employee, as a partner, as a shareholder. So I decided, let me try Amazon, which didn't exist in those days here. But then, I knew they needed a partner because of the rules in FDI for retail. So I went to Mr. Narayan Murthy and I said, boss, let's go, bring them here, you put in the money, I'll manage it. So I introduced Murthy and Bezos. About 2 months later, Mr. Murthy called me, hey, I wanted to tell you, we did a deal, but there's no role for you. So what I'm trying to say is you try many things and you realize from these experiments, first of all, what do you really enjoy and which is a nice hobby? The other thing you'll realize is, what does God have in store for you? In the sense, you knock on many doors, some open, some don't. Okay? And you have to read the tea leaves and figure this out. And there's no way you can do all this by thinking about it. So this is why I say do lots of micro experiments. And by the way, the good news is you don't have to quit your job to do this. You can do this from the safety of a job that you're not exactly loving. You can do it at nights, on weekends. You can take breaks and do these things. You can do moonlighting, which is a popular subject in its own way. So there are lots of ways of doing these experiments. This is how startups also do it. If you think about a startup, they don't know what will succeed. So they build prototypes and they put it out there, and then they see how does the market and the customer respond. Okay? These are called minimum viable prototypes. So you're building little prototypes of your future to see which one will actually work.
Okay, thank you.
Time for songs.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Song and dance.
When are we getting the audience in?
After the next section. After the next section.
We need to be clear about the choices, sir. But yes, and as you mentioned yet again about choices, and serendipity happens, and while Mr. Murthy didn't give you the role there, ऐसा जिंदगी में कई बार होता है, right? So Karan, why don't we have that song? And to add to some trivia behind this song, how do you remember what movie was this? Who said Rajnikantha? Oh, fantastic! You love movies, right? And the title song sung by Lata Mangeshkar. One of the most fascinating songs, Rajnikantha Phul Tumhare. And interestingly, this song, Kai Baar Yun Bhi Dekha Hai, was offered to Lata Mangeshkar, but she charged 3,000 rupees for that. So the producer said, boss, we don't have that much money, so what to do? I said, okay, give it to Mukesh. And it was 1,000 rupees, 1/3. So many times you never know where the job will land. And this song, ladies and gentlemen, changed Mukesh's life. He got the biggest award possible for Kai Baar Yun Bhi Dekha Hai. And especially a big round of applause to Mukesh. Why? Because we're celebrating the centenary of Mukesh this year. So Kai Baar Yun Bhi Dekha Hai, ladies and gentlemen, dedicated to Mukesh and to the life that we all celebrate. Coming to our third section, which is about the success and happiness that Mukesh enjoyed after that, and relating it to the third section, which the discussion will happen with Shiv and Ravi, which is on reflections on what is success and what is happiness.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. So one of the things as you go through your career, etc., is everybody tells you, you must renew, you must reskill. Two words which everybody throws at you. Could you demystify those two words for the audience in terms of saying when does one renew and why, and when does reskill and why? Okay.
Interesting. So renew, I suppose, is the same as what recharging is to a lithium-ion battery. Okay, which is you go through the day, you're depleting in all forms of energy, and so unless you recharge, tomorrow's not going to be so good. And I would think that we have 3 or 4 different types of batteries. One is sort of your physical energy. Another one might be mental. The third one is probably emotional. Fourth one being spiritual. There may be a fifth or a sixth. And so what I think we have to do is to think consciously about how you're going to recharge yourself on all these dimensions. And we have to recharge in different time horizons. One is daily, another one is weekly, monthly, and the third one is annually, and one is even longer. So if you think about physically, sure, we have to eat, exercise, get good night's sleep every day. That's renewal. Once in a while you need to also go for a Ayurvedic 14-day detox. That's part of renewal, etc. And it's the same for the other things as well, right? So for the mental part, it's about learning new things, it's about meditation, and so on and so forth. So I'm not very good at this. Somehow I've managed to reach 60, but I'm sort of overdrawing on a lot of the reserves. So you ask a good question. The reskilling one is a very interesting one. I think most people are confused about this. Everybody gets that when things are changing so fast, if you don't learn new things, you're toast. Okay? But I don't think most people know what to learn. So generally the emphasis is on learning technical skills. Today what is hot? So I'll go learn that so that I can get a job. So right now, for instance, there is a job posting for a new category which didn't exist 2 months ago, which is called, I think it's called a query engineer, somebody who knows how to design queries for ChatGPT. Okay? This is a job that didn't exist in January. It's quite hot in March. Okay? And pretty soon in April there'll be courses on this that you can take and get a certificate. So much of our thinking is around these lines, which are what are hard skills, technical skills that will help me stay employed. This is necessary but a pointless quest, because the world is changing so fast that whatever skill you have today is going to get obsolete, whatever you learn is going to. So it's a moving goalpost. So in my book, which they all have a copy, right? Wonderful. So there's a whole 2 chapters on what skills are important, which 100 years from now are still relevant, okay, and going to be probably even more important. And I say, look, to the best of my understanding, there are 4 of these, and this is what you might want to focus on. And these are all soft skills. So one of them is this thing called learning agility, and which is not just the ability to learn new things. If you're thrown into a situation you've never experienced, like COVID, how do you learn to deal with it, cope with it, and actually flourish it? I enjoyed COVID. You know, I enjoyed being at home, not traveling, having a routine, and lots of those things, the remote work. But many people didn't. Okay, so so that's a question of how well you're able to adapt to a new situation. Another critical skill is entrepreneurial ability. Not everybody is going to start a business, but in the 21st century, if you're going to do well, you need to think and operate like an entrepreneur. And by the way, that's a learnable skill. Another one which is critical is the ability to lead others without power, without influence, without title. You see this sometimes. There's a traffic jam, it's going nowhere, there's no cop, and somebody gets out and starts directing traffic, and pretty soon, that's leadership. We need this capability in many more of us. So I say, look, these 4 skills are just the most important super skills. So fine, you can go learn a new programming language or whatever else you want to do. That's what you want to do. But these 4 are the most important ones.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. Now we are into our last 2 questions. Okay. So last but one. How many of you have teenage children? Fantastic.
Demographic.
Very good. Very good. So, you talked of 40 and waking up and saying, what have I done with my life? Have I come here in terms of what I imagined it would be when I finished college, etc. We have a teenager amongst us, Niharika, who's sitting right at the end. She's 15 years old. Okay. Her relationship with her mother, like all your relationships is with your teenage children, is based on one skill called listening. So Niharika tells her mother, Pavitra, you're not listening to me. And Pavitra tells Niharika, you're not listening to me. So I'm sure that all of you are going through exactly that. That's a skill we need a hell of a lot more of when you deal with teenage children. Okay. But my question to you, Ravi, is, okay, we've all crossed many paths in our life. Niharika has a runway ahead of us. Of her. She's got a 10-kilometer runway. Okay, we had 3 kilometers or 2 kilometers or whatever. She's got a 10-kilometer runway ahead of us. What would you tell a 15-year-old like Niharika, and what would you tell these parents to tell their kids in terms of how they should look at the runway ahead?
Okay, Niharika, I'm talking to you, and you're going to decide whether this perspective was at all of any use. So, by the way, I got totally bogged down in writing my book, and 2021 I got panic stricken because it's now 3 years or 4 years and it's not going anywhere. So the way I got out of that jam is I created an editorial board, and the youngest was 15. Garvita Gulati, and the oldest was 85, okay, Bob Burke. So I had this editorial team of 5 people who kept discussing each chapter with me every week, and that's how I finally got it down. But anyway, Niharika, the first thing I would advise, first of all, I know it's pointless giving advice, okay, so I'm starting from that place. But the first thing I'd say is, look, the most important thing in life is self-belief, okay? So, but chapter 2 of my book is on mindset. And I start out with 2 quotations which I love. One is Bill Gates. He says, what you believe is what you achieve, okay? And then even better is Henry Ford, 100 years before that. He says, whether you think you can or whether you think you cannot, you're right, okay? So this belief in yourself, the belief that I'm good, I'm capable of achieving this, I'm capable of doing that, is the single biggest determinant of how far you will go and how good you will feel about yourself. So cultivate that actively. Believe in yourself, and don't let other people, including your mom, nibble away at it. Okay, so I think I scored a point here. Okay. The second thing I would say is retain your curiosity and follow your curiosity. If you see, every child, every baby is intensely curious, right from birth. Looking around, seeing lights, following movements. After that, you're putting your fingers in the plug point. You're intensely curious about everything. But by the time you become a teenager, it's been beaten out of you for the most part. Okay? You're now much more in compliance mode. You're trying to please, you're trying to listen to people, and you've somewhere lost much of your curiosity. But it's not gone anywhere, it's still there. So the trick is to go back and strengthen that curiosity, show great wonder in every aspect, not just around curiosity about some things, okay? And use that to take unconventional decisions. If you look at a lot of successful people, successful in the sense not just who made money, but to achieve interesting things in life, you'll find that they've done many different random things. And what connects the dots is actually they simply followed their curiosity. Okay? So I would say this is the second thing. Third one I would say is take more risk. Okay? Don't go down the risk-free path, which is go here to Ashoka University, to Oxford, London Business School, Harvard Business School, McKinsey, whatever. Okay? That take more risks along the way. And why do I say this? I write about it in the book also. When you talk to older people, and now I'm getting there too, and you look at their regrets, very few of their regrets about things they tried that didn't work out. Most of the regrets about things that you should have tried but didn't. Okay, so mistakes of omission more than mistakes of commission. So take more risks. And the final thing I come back to is you're going to grow up in a world which is much more, technologically driven, etc. So, at my point around excellence is very important. And you can't be excellent at something you don't like. So, you have to follow the path of what you really are good at and what you love doing. Only then can you be excellent at it. So, go down that path, whatever it is, and whether or not it has the sanction and approval of your best friends and your parents.
Good.
Thank you.
So my last question,
What do you tell the parents?
Get out of the way.
Okay.
We need to say thank you again.
Yeah, so my last question is, Clayton Christensen wrote a few years ago an absolute path-breaking article in terms of how will you measure your life, and then he turned it into a book. Your book, the title of it, is pretty similar, What the Heck Do I Do With My Life? And the common thing which I find in both is that you have to think of contribution. How do you think of contribution in somebody's life or somebody's career, and what should that be?
First of all, when you're young, you don't think about contribution. You tend to think about achievement. Okay, and in fact, one of the ideas I developed in my book is a very old Jewish idea of a first mountain and a second mountain in life. So the first mountain is when you set out as a young person to conquer the world. You want to be successful. You want to achieve many things. Because you believe it is what will make you happy and give you satisfaction. And then you hit midlife, and one day you're standing on top of the first mountain, and you realize two things. First of all, you realize I didn't get as much joy and happiness as I thought it would give me. It was okay. And the second thing you realize is I've climbed one hill, but when I look around, there are many, many thousands of hills, some of them much larger, and there are people like Shiv standing on it. So whatever I thought I had achieved is nothing compared to what others have achieved. And that's when humility sets in. For some people, this is the trigger of what's called the midlife crisis. And so what you need to do then is come down and figure out what your second hill is going to be and start climbing that. And while it may look the same, you're climbing another mountain, your mindset is totally different, okay? Because this time it's no longer about you, it's no longer about your success and achievement, it's about other people, okay? It's about making the world better, it's about other people. So your attitude, mindset is completely different. And therefore the way you engage with people and the world will be different. So what does this actually mean in practice? Contribution basically means that God has given you some unique gifts. Like young Karan has the ability to sing. Okay? Somebody else has the ability to entertain. Somebody else has the ability to cook. Somebody else has the ability to invent and build beautiful new things. Whatever those are, whatever other good luck your life has given you, whether it's money or expertise, networks, whatever, how do you use these things to the highest value and make the world more beautiful? So finding a way to think about whatever unique things you have to make the world more beautiful is essentially the art of contribution. Now, a decade ago, I heard a guru, unnamed, who used a very nice metaphor for this. He says, imagine you're a small 2-watt LED in a dark room, okay? But that's not your potential. Your potential is actually 100 watts. You need to find a way to glow brighter. And the reason to do that is not to be the brightest bulb in the room and outshine everybody else. It is to dispel darkness. So it is this mindset that is different, not what you do. You may still be an investor multiplying your money, but why you're making that money is completely different. It is this spirit that has to be, I think, cultivated. But I'm no expert on this. It's still a struggle.
Good. So that's the formal round of questions, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of applause for Ravi. Now the floor is open. Feel free to ask Ravi any question that you want.
Take some time for that, sir.
Yeah.
Before
Oh,
that,
sorry.
As what Ravi mentioned, use it to the highest value. And since it was about Niharika, ladies and gentlemen, there is somebody to invite you for what Niharika would be doing, and the lady who will invite you has done something that exactly what Ravi has been mentioning. Use it to the highest value. I would like to invite Dr. Madhumita Puri, who for the last 35 years has been running a very fascinating outfit out here in Delhi. It employs people with determination, disability, and doing the creative recycling of the waste. So if you throw an Alpenliebe label or a sachet next time, she will actually convert it into a shirt, a bag or something else. If you have an old keyboard at home, she will convert earrings out of it. And that's what the creative design thinking is all about. And here today, she's here to invite all of you and giving the first invite to both Ravi and Shiv for an exhibition that she's doing with the paste glass and the paper. And that's where Niharika, you will be performing the Kathak in a very different way. You will be telling the story, the Katha of dignity in life on that livelihood. So Dr. Puri would like to give the invite to Ravi and Shiv. This is the first invite for what she is hosting at the Artifact Center on the 25th of this month. So all of you please join.
My name is Ankon Mitra, and you must Google it and see the absolutely amazing things he does. He's basically an architect by profession, and he married architecture and origami to make a new concept called Oritecture. So when he heard about us, he wanted to collaborate with us, and he had this vision of the arc of the constellation, which joins the dots, whether you're diverse, the smallest part of the room, or whether you are using your abilities to whatever capacity that you can, and create this marvelous thing which is the universe. Do come, the show opens on the 25th. We are having Niharika, who will be, from the young point of view, will be showing how diversity makes the universe. And of course all our children from the Society for Child Development, in whose aid this show is being held, will also be there, bravely lighting the lamp. We would love to see her there.
And do contribute, please. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Puri. We all have the invites now. Now, just few more minutes. We're doing so. I need more trailers, but nothing. A great blockbuster always needs a great trailer, right? And most of the time, the trailer is shown before the movie comes out. But while what we just did was the movie, the trailer comes at the end. That's the new way of looking at it. And to tell you about the trailer and to give you the summary of what they just discussed, some of the learnings, I have one of the friends of books in the form of Manoj Gopalakrishna, the former MD of BD. Till recently was the CEO of the CARE as well. Now he's on a very exciting social VC. So I would request Manoj, a friend of books and one of the most curious readers I have come across. So from coffee to atomic energy, he can read anything. So Manoj, why don't you please do the honors?
Thanks, Mohit, for that great introduction. So it's my unique privilege to be here this evening with two of my gurus. So in fact, I should disclose that Ravi has been a mentor to me during my Becton Dickinson day. In fact, the previous book of Ravi, Conquering with Chaos, exactly was something which was the script for BD to really go to the next level. So when Ravi and I met first time, BD was actually a very successful US-centric medtech company operating in India, a real sales outpost. And in fact, in the first conversation that we had, he said, you're not ambitious. It's like a $60 million, $70 million company. Why don't you talk about a $1 billion company and get talking to your board in the US and excite them? So in fact, I followed that same script that he told me. And when I talked about in the US, people said, oh, can India do R&D? Today I can tell you that BD's largest R&D operation outside US is actually in India. And also very strong manufacturing footprint. And the company became fairly large. And I can also tell you that as he was advising me, mentoring me, what the heck do I do with my life was there in all the advice. So as the company became successful, I also thought that I should really move away from this quarter-to-quarter life and then do something very exciting. And in fact, last whole decade, I've been following actually every prescription or every recommendation or every lesson which isn't what the heck do I do with my life. So that the thing is that I've been able to really take much of the learnings to different worlds. One is at the startup world, the development world. Now we are looking at the social enterprise space. How do you really live a purposeful life? That's what actually I really learned working with Ravi. And also when we had the management team coming in from the US, I had Shiv to really tell them how exciting is India. So in fact, I can tell you that both of them have written great books, but also in that there has been a lot of practical lessons for many managers like me. And I'm sure that today we take those learnings across multiple dimensions. And I can tell you the most influential piece that really worked on me is that I always felt that I'm living on a borrowed life. And that's what Ravi's theme has been even when I was in my mid-40s. So what do you want to really know for? And what do you want to really change? What do you want to do as an impact? And that's exactly the journey that we've been going in terms of driving impact, influencing lives, and how do we do that at scale? So I'm sure that the books will give that exciting journey and the path for all of us to follow. It is great to really hear from Ravi and Shiv, and I'm sure that without even liquids, we have been fairly energized, so that we have an exciting opportunity to have the question and answer for the rest of the time till the dinner comes.
No, on the expert side, somebody asked, are you serving water? I said, no, that's vodka.
Okay.
So he said, no, but Shiv is gulping it. Shiv can do it, but you try it. So liquids can be in any form, Manoj. And on that note, thanks a lot, Manoj.
Both in terms of relative performance, as well as in terms of being displaced by the rising tide of automation. It is not possible for every one of us to be excellent at everything, but you better figure out quickly what you can be excellent at. And I think almost every one of us has some special talent, some special qualities around which we can be excellent. Okay? And it's not always to do with intellect or skill. For instance, somebody is very empathetic. Their ability to connect emotionally is very, very high. You can build something excellent around that. So you have to find what is it that this makes you special. And I don't think I've ever met a human being who didn't have that.
One question.
Yeah,
On startups. On startups. So startups.
By the way, you want to add?
You finish your question.
So yeah, on the startups currently, valuation game is going on while it is eating somebody else's money. Is it going to last long? Because all the studies says about 3% of the companies are making profits, 97% of the investors are losing money. So where does it take India to, and is there a long-term story on that?
So my view, which is just a view, is perhaps less than 20% of our unicorns are unicorns. Okay, or less than that. Number two, quite a large number of startups will perish, and that's the way it is. Anywhere in the world, this is a high-risk game. You pursue an idea, and only 10% of the times will it be quite successful, and 1% will it be sensationally successful. There's no reason to believe our averages are any different from the larger laws of average. The good news is today, because of this early successes, many more people are attempting entrepreneurship. So as a result of larger numbers, we will eventually have many more successes. We're already seeing the first wave of startups were copycats, but now the second and third generation have a lot of original ideas. So the ecosystem is evolving. A lot of people are going to lose money, a lot of people are going to get hurt, but eventually things get recycled. If you think about us, what is the earth and what are our bodies made of? It's the ash of dead stars, right? So even in the universe, there's a way of recycling matter. And so those people will take their lessons, learnings, they'll end up in new startups, some of those will be successful. So I'm definitely optimistic, but I would say that right now it's very much a shakeout time.
Yeah, so I want to go back to that excellence question because it's a very good question. How many of you are football fans? Any Manchester United fan?
I used to be.
Used to be. Okay, two. Okay. The way they played 2 weeks ago, you don't want to be their fan. Anyway, so at Manchester United, they have a quote ascribed to Busby, okay, the legendary manager. It says, "At United, we aim for perfection. If we fail, we'll settle for excellence." Okay, so that is his quote. Excellence became a huge buzzword in management thanks to Peterson Waterman, 1984. Okay, they were McKinsey consultants. They were doing a second-rate project in the McKinsey hierarchy, and then Siemens called them and said, "Hey guys, can you tell us what you've learned over your 3 years?" These guys put 700 slides, like good consultants. They spent 2 days with McKinsey, 2 days with Siemens, and told them whatever it is. PepsiCo, my company, okay, I was not there with PepsiCo then, they got to know about the study. So they called McKinsey and said, "We don't have 2 days, we have 2 hours. Now can you guys put something together?" And these guys put 40 slides together. Now here's the catch of excellence. 60% of the companies they said were excellent in 1984 don't exist today or not excellent today. So the point about excellence is it's a continuous journey. Because you're excellent today does not give you a birthright to be excellent tomorrow morning. You have to constantly evolve yourself. How does it translate in organizations and all of your organization people? In organizations, we make a very fundamental mistake, which is we look at our talent as this room. The ceiling is what we call the excellent people. We call them type A people, okay, A-listers. And the floor is the C-listers. And invariably, companies and HR departments make the mistake of investing in the ceiling, okay, more development programs, more training courses, etc. When they invest only in the top, what happens is this gap widens and you get social strife in that company. The trick of a good company is to invest in both levels so that that gap is maintained or maybe shrinks. That's when you truly get an excellent company. You do not get an excellent company with 10% A-listers ever. The best example is Ronaldo is an A-lister, Portugal didn't qualify. Remember this again and again and again. This is a mistake we make. We think stars will bail us out. In my career, stars never bail you out.
Virat Kohli has not been able to get an IPL for bank.
Absolutely right. As an example, though he's done many other things. Yeah. Oh, yeah, questions for Ravi.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dr. Kavita. So my question is targeted to you, Dr. Mr. Ravi. So I've been following you and your work for quite some time now, and at some point of time we have been talking about recruiting a personal board of directors. So it would be really helpful if you could give some targeted advice to how to formulate that, how to bring diversity and inclusivity in that.
That's a very good question. So I talk about life increasingly looking like a game of snakes and ladders. So those of us who are old enough to remember that, you hit a ladder and you go shooting up, but then zoom, you go down. And problem is the new boards have more and more snakes. So many more ways of going down. And so how to avoid these things? Okay, how do you avoid making really, really consequential mistakes? And so for instance, somebody leaves a good job with a good company and they go to this speculative place and 3 months later, they're out because they realize this is not the kind of place I want to be. Now, if you had asked somebody, they would have told you this is not going to work out, okay? But you didn't ask. So like that. Marriages, that's another high stakes game, etc. So you need a set of people who can help you avoid catastrophic mistakes. And that's why I say, if you have what I call a personal board of directors, it can help. So companies have this, right? So you have a board of directors. It's generally thoughtful people. If you're serious about governance, they're good people. And before you make any major decision, you tend to have a good discussion, hear a variety of perspectives so that you can make a wise choice or a better choice. How can you emulate something similar in your own lives, in our own lives? So I said, look, over the years, I've accumulated a set of people whose views and wisdom I really have learned to appreciate. Okay, it can be your father, your spouse, your 2 closest friends, some teacher you had who has a lot of wisdom, whatever it is. It could be a mentor, a manager at work. And so you keep a list of these people, okay? And these are people who you say, look, I think there's something special about them. They're wise people and they think deeply about it. So when you have a decision in front of you, you go and talk to them. And you don't have to listen to what they say. You don't have to act on what they say. You can make your own decision. But you now do it in a much more informed way. So I'll give you an example. So in 2003, I was leaving Cummins, thinking of leaving Cummins after 16 years, and I had this great offer from Microsoft. And I was very excited about it, but I was also very scared because I was afraid of failing. One is it's a different industry. Those days Microsoft was not this kind, gentle company. It still isn't. But it was a terrifyingly tough place. So I asked 10 people. 9 out of 10 people said don't do it. Okay? I still did it. But now I walked in with my eyes wide open. So in the book I talk about how you begin to put together such a group. And this group doesn't exist. It's a virtual group. They don't know each other. They don't know they're part of your so-called personal board. But I find it very valuable. You want to say anything, Shiv?
No, you had the personal board for the book. We did that.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. I had this editorial board for just writing my book, and it was a very diverse group of people.
Fantastic, thank you.
Any last questions? Because I think
one more question.
There is some vodka outside, isn't there?
Yes, very
Yeah.
much. Very much.
Okay.
Ravi, I'll ask you a question.
Yes, and then there's another thing.
So I'm Raghav Chandra, and I've worked in government most of my life. So the question is, with the advent of AI and in a digital economy age, with all kinds of automation and all that, do you think government's engagement with citizens is going to make it more liberal and create a more open and encourage civil liberties? Or you think because citizens are now they would have as we see digital media, social media, various kinds of opportunities, or do you think governments will be able to harness it better to control civil liberties and societies, and therefore we are heading for a more authoritarian sort of system of governance?
It's a beautiful question. Every technology since the beginning of time, starting with fire, has been dual use. It could be used for good and it could be used for bad, right? So fire can be used for cooking and keeping yourself warm. It can be used to burn your enemy's village. The same is true of gunpowder, the same is true of the internet, okay? So we thought that the internet is going to profoundly transform the world for better, but it's a decidedly mixed bag when you look at the impact of social media, etc. You take surveillance technology, cameras, facial recognition, all that. It can be used for good, it can be used to monitor and control. So I think it all depends on which way you choose to deploy technology. And so the world is actually a manifestation of the values of the people in power. And therefore, the answer to your question depends on what is the value system of the dispensation of the times. Right now, I would say it would not be in the direction of civil liberties, but that is not a given. It will change over time. Last question.
I work as a business leader in UK.
With Shiv.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be a very interesting question, right? First of all, I'll give you a context that whatever you told in your book in the first two chapters, actually I've gone through the same. And I've been thinking about that for the last few years now. I'm in kind of a midlife, this thing, right? First mountain I've already crossed, gone down probably right now. So I could totally relate to it. Now I thought how to solve this problem, like you've written a book. I was thinking that how to solve this problem for others, right? Because I am going through this. Do you think, now my question is, do you think that can we solve this problem through technology? Because you talked about the thing called
this problem exactly.
What do we do with my life, right? This is a problem statement, right?
Yeah,
Everyone
okay.
has, right? Can I solve this via technology? Right? I want to elaborate. So for example, I'll give you how also. Small example, but So for example, you talked about someone is mediocre, right? probably I am mediocre, but it is right. How I will know that I am a mediocre? How to benchmark my skills, right? First of all. So, all said and done, right? I've been talking to my lot of colleagues, right? What kind of skill set? They say that I don't know my worth in the market right now. So let's say if I'm a Java developer, he will tell me, right? Today I'm working in Nokia. I'm fantastic, but I don't know how I will fare in Google or some other startup. I don't know my benchmark, right? And I don't know what I need to learn more, right, going forward. So my now question is, I have some ideas here, but can you think? Because I am pretty convinced that I can solve this problem through technology, through AI or a lot of different algorithms. But what I want to know your view. Can we solve this problem through technology or not?
I don't know the answer, but I
Had a conversation with Bill Gates 4 years ago on exactly this topic. So 4 years ago, we were starting a new UNICEF program called Generation Unlimited. So I went, of course, to Bill for funding. So, so he said, what are you trying to do? I said, we're trying to engage 1.8 billion young people around the world and prepare them with the mindset and skills they need to succeed in the 21st century, which is different in all these ways. So I said, what advice do you have? His first advice was, don't do it. Okay, but then he laughed. So he said, okay, fine. He said, if you're going to do one thing, here's the problem I would solve. How do you help people identify much sooner what is their aptitude and what is their interest, so that they don't waste most of their life going down the wrong path and then have much later to discover this? And he says, today we have technology to be able to do that. Okay, so, but this is not easy. We did try for 3.5 years to do various kinds of career counseling, career guidance things, and it didn't work. You cannot do it. We haven't figured out how to do it in a scalable way, because aptitude and interest depends a lot on your exposure. How can I judge your aptitude if you've never tried something, you've never been exposed to something? But I think using technology, there probably is something. So if you're going to do it, I'm very interested, stay in touch. But Shiv, you should answer this, yeah? It's much more your cup of tea.
So I would say is, whatever job you do, you must try and be the very best at that point of time in that job. Very few people actually do it, believe it or not. Okay, because the way we've grown up, definitely in India and some other parts of the world, we have grown up in a relative marks way. Okay, and invariably in organizations, what happens is somebody is running at 40 kilometers an hour. He sees the guy at the next table running at 30 and he thinks he's a king. You don't know that there's somebody else in some other company running at 80. And 5 years from then, when you meet that guy, you say, God, life's up. Because your muscles are no longer able to run at 80. So whatever you do, I think you should be absolutely good at it. And constantly renew yourself to be better and better and better. Okay?
Can you use technology to do
Yes, you can use a lot of technology. For example, any topic under the sun today, okay, being a developer, being a writer, being anything you want, there's so much material out there. We talk about technology. Companies use less than 5% of the data they have today. Companies want more and more technology, but nobody is actually using it. So if somebody were to actually do that, it will be very good. And the last point I would make to you is that everybody tells you everybody wants to do jobs they love. But the truly good people that I've seen in my career, they fall in love with jobs even they don't like. That is what makes the difference, because they know they're not going to do the job for life. Maybe they've been given for 2 years, but for those 2 years, they'll fall in love with that job and deliver. And remember this always, organizations always value those type of people.
Good.
Oh, fantastic. So what the heck did I do in my life? And that's where the art of management comes in. So ladies and gentlemen, with these two titles in the bags that are outside, come over, get it signed. And also, while we've been talking about the Bollywood movies, we started Sholay. But I'll tell you something interesting about Hollywood as well, and how I fell in love with movies of Hollywood, especially in those teenage days when the VCRs used to be the choice, and especially when the parents were not at home. The problem with the Bollywood movies was the castings always used to come first, so you had to always keep the fast forward. But with the Hollywood movies, the best part was acknowledgments were always at the end. So you knew, let it be.
I need not watch the remaining 10 minutes. But yes, here the acknowledgements at the end do value a lot to us, especially while we're talking about Bangalore, Sholay, Jan, Viru friendship. I have my friend Nipun coming all the way from Bangalore for this session. Special thanks to Ridhima for organizing everything, to Purna, Omi, our team here, and our lovely young budding composer and lyricist. He doesn't want to be called as a singer, which he did. But and special thanks to all of you for a Friday evening, leaving your PVR popcorns, coming to this place where you knew you will not be served vodka, for sure. And also you will not be served with non-veg for that matter. But nonetheless, this is how our evenings are. We as friends of books who love you and fall in love with books, get them signed. That's where you'll have more interaction. We'll have more such conversations over the dinner now. We open the floor for the dinner and get the book signed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was truly a pleasure to have you all here. Thank you very, very much. A big round of applause to both Shiv and Ravi. And also a special mention to Suhasini ma'am, who came all the way from Bangalore and certainly supported Ravi in this journey. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
To add a few